Oh man. Well, look at that. My mic was muted. This is perks of doing solo sessions without my coworker Amaya here. So what I was saying is that if you're new here, welcome. Right? These are interactive sessions. Um, are we still missing volume, Diego? Let me see here. We should be okay. Folks in the chat, because I'm just solo today, can you still hear me, or am I still muted? We're just going to assume all good now. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so what I was saying, interactive session. Stop me, ask any questions that you want to dive deeper on. If you are returning here, it's good to see you again. I was mentioning earlier, but I think I was muted. You're just going to get me this weekend. We're doing things solo. So appreciate any patience that folks can give while we operate here. But let's get rolling here. So without further ado, you're all here, and we all know AI is here as well, right? Gartner is forecasting that adoption is going to rise even more rapidly this year. So they're saying that by 2028, 75% of software engineers will use AI code assistants, right? And that number is up from less than 10% last year, right? And that's not really surprising, right? Because AI is fundamentally changing software development. And the productivity gains for using AI code assistants for engineering teams have been incredible, to say the least. And that's regardless of what tool you're using, right? Whether it's an AI code assistant or an LLM, these solutions have real value and are helping engineering teams deliver faster. And specifically at Tab9, the increase we've seen on our customers, we've seen our customers come to expect is somewhere between like a 30 and 50% increase in productivity gains across the full set of tasks that constitute the SDLC. So even more so, Gartner is reporting that by 2028, 60% of enterprise IT operations will be supported by AI agents. And that's up from less than 5% in 2024. Now, continuing on that path, engineering leaders, for engineering leaders, the performance quality of AI agents is their most important consideration factor, right, when deciding what vendor to choose next. So let's just talk about some real world blockers, right, that teams are facing when adopting these AI agents throughout the SDLC. First, you're having no visibility, right? You don't know what the agent's referencing, or worse, you don't know what it's ignoring, right? And that's governance and debugging nightmare. Second is no alignment, right? These tools move fast, but often in the wrong direction, right? Violating your architecture, your security policies, and your definition of done, right? Third is no currency, right? Your code base evolves every day, and most models don't keep pace, which means suggestions are outdated before they even hit the IDE. The fourth piece here is no consistency, right? So one team's agent behaves and another's doesn't. And that inconsistency leads to fragmented standards and unpredictability in quality. And then finally, there's no safety net, right? Every incorrect suggestion becomes rework, risk, or a silent failure in production, none of which scales, right? So what makes Tab9 different? Well, it starts with our context engine, right? And unlike generic AI tools, Tab9's agents aren't guessing, right? They're grounded in your actual real-time code base. And they understand your architecture, they understand your style guides, they understand your patterns and your way of building software. And that means that the code that they generate isn't just plausible, it's aligned with your standards. It's validated against your guardrails, and it's delivered in a way that your developers can trust and actually adopt. And that's what we mean by enterprise grade AI. It's not just fast, it's controlled, it's governed, and it's performant, right? Because scaling AI without trust and control, that's just scaling chaos. So with Tab9, you get the speed of AI without compromising the integrity of your code base. And one thing we like to say here is, any agent can write code, but ours earn your developers' trust. So where have we been and where are we going from here? Right? All AI capabilities are rapidly evolving, and Tab9 is continually at the forefront of this emerging space. Starting all the way back in 2018, we actually we're the inventor and creator of this category. And that's when we first released our first ever AI-based code completion model for the Java IDE. And we were also called Codota at that time. But from there, in 2019, LLMs emerged for the first time, right? And of course, we're all probably not really aware of them yet because no one really paid attention to LLMs until ChatGPT exploded in popularity in like late 2022 or 21. But with the emergence of LLM tech, we started to expand our code completions model to cover more languages across major IDEs, right? Or across all major IDEs. And then the code completions got even better, right? And in 2022, we got full function, full line snippet and block code completions. And in 23, we launched our AI chat agent, and that let you use natural language to do code generation through chat, right? And now in 2024, we launched our first iteration of our context engine and developing local ID context and global context. And 2024 also saw us launch human in the loop AI agents for every step of the SDLC. So this is what we've already built, right? We've already built a full set of AI agents for every step of the SDLC. And these agents help you accelerate and simplify the entire software development process. They can help you plan, they can help you create, document, test, review, and even maintain code. And today you can use these agents directly in your IDE out of the box, like an AI pair programmer, assisting you with each and every one of these steps. And we're going to show you demos, of all of these agents in action later this morning. So let's keep moving here. So let's talk about where we're going as an industry here, right? Well, AI-enabled software development is really going to be able to autonomously execute more and more and more tasks over time, unlocking more and more value for your business theoretically. And Tab9 is really your perfect partner along the way. And you may have seen a video interview of, Mark Zuckerberg on the Joe Rogan podcast. Whether or not you love Joe Rogan or hate him, but Zuck said that the AI engineer is already here in 2025, and I don't believe that's true for the enterprise, and we don't believe that's true for the enterprise. And literally any enterprise engineering leader I speak to also doesn't believe that's true for the enterprise. So I'm not entirely sure what Zuck was talking about there, but what I do agree with is that this technology has the potential and it will continue to improve and evolve. And it will eventually deliver some form of what many of us in our industry are calling the AI engineer, and what you imagine is one. But it's not happening tomorrow, and it's not happening this year. And any forecasts on when it will happen range from as near as 5 years away to multiple decades. So the truth is, if anyone actually tells you they can accurately predict when something like a fully autonomous AI engineer will emerge, that is a statement you should take with a grain of salt. So we've grounded ourselves at looking at what's actually happened. So we'll take a look at, where we actually are, and where we are today is transitioning from it's hallucinating. Yeah, that's funny. It's a good joke, Martin. So yeah, we'll take a look at where we actually are, and where we are today is transitioning from AI coding assistants to semi-autonomous human-in-the-loop AI agents for specific tasks and capabilities in the SDLC for mature enterprise engineering teams. So before you get to a true agentic AI for software development that mature enterprise engineering teams can actually trust and use, there are some things that need to happen, right? Agentic AI needs to use deep organizational insights. And the reason for that is, in an analysis by a number of independent researchers, Get Clear is a great example of a study that came out. But in an analysis by independent researchers, it was observed that in some cases, as the adoption of AI-generated code rose, so did the number of rejected pull requests. And in some cases, that meant that there was these massive amounts of rejection at code review. But why would that be the case? AI clearly knows how to code, and it knows programming languages. The answer really lies in your organization itself. So if I ask the 39 of you that are live on air right now, the right answer to a specific engineering assignment, it's likely that you're going to give me, 39 different answers. And the problem is that they're all actually correct. But the only one that matches your expectations and guidelines and standards, however, is the only one that's going to make it past your pull request and code review, is the one that you've given, right? Now, working with an LLM, it's like hiring a software engineer off the street, right? They know the O'Reilly textbook answer to every single coding problem, but they don't know how your organization does things, right? So at best, they may propose to write a new function, or rewrite an existing function that already exists, or just in general increasing tech debt. And at worst, they could propose changes that break your corporate policies and adversely affect your application. So when you combine the inherent knowledge and capabilities within an LLM with the right understanding of your team, you fix this problem. And that's really about layering on the right level of context. So we'll show that here a little bit later. So for us to go from an AI chat assistant, AI code assistant, to an autonomous AI engineer, and along the way, agentic AI that you can trust, there's two major things that need to happen that we need to deliver on as an industry. Right. The first is agentic AI for the enterprise needs a comprehensive understanding of company knowledge and standards. And the second is that engineers need to have absolute control on a task level over AI scope, behaviors, and decision as it works. So let's keep going here. It's a hell of a time to be an engineer. Exciting and thrilling even, but it's also very, very challenging for engineering teams, specifically in the enterprise and highly regulated and privacy conscious industries, because many of you have a mandate to adopt AI to increase efficiency, but you also have to adhere to your internal policies, which is really difficult. And frankly, AI solution providers keep claiming that they all do the same thing, but the proof is in the pudding, as you'll find here with Tabnine. When you do a trial or POV with us, you'll see we're one of the few that will actually tell you what the capabilities are and can actually deliver on them. But I digress. What I'd like to offer you is with some perspective. Excuse me. As you undertake this journey, right, evaluating AI and deploying AI agents at your enterprise, we're really going to be your partner along the way. So, just bear with me a little bit longer here, and we're going to get to that demo that I know you all came here for. So, we all now know what the issues with LLMs and generic AI code assistants and generic agentic AI software development, right? And the real issue is that they lack context. They give you generic answers. They generate more code, more tech debt, and using any of them today requires you to trade off between privacy and protection and performance. And we don't believe you need to make that decision. So with Tabnine, we eliminate the need to trade off between privacy and performance and protection. With Tabnine, you can get it all, right? Excuse me. And the way we delivered on that is using powerful LLMs, layering our advanced context engine for personalization, and combining that with AI agents that are fully human in the loop, right? Human in the loop, meaning they're not just going to go off and blindly change your code and push things, right, without you knowing. It's giving you complete control over all of their behaviors, all of their actions, and keeping your engineers in the pilot seat. Because these are not co-pilots, right? These are your agents. We shouldn't have those two confused. So let's talk about a few more, barriers, right, and address those barriers to enterprise AI adoption, right? And the first one is protecting your organization from the risk of copyright infringement. Now, historically, the IP liability present in LLM data has been akin to Schrodinger's cat, right? It is, and it both is and isn't alive. In that sense, the IP liability is and isn't present, right? Organizations using AI already haven't been able to look inside the box. But whether you want to or not, it's time to look inside. And we did, and the cat is mostly free of IP liabilities. So this is an important thing to note and to share with your legal teams, right? Because nearly 90% of survey respondents to the 2025 RBC CIO survey reported that they're adopting AI into their processes by the end of 2025. And their biggest concern for nearly 38% of respondents was copyright infringement. So we want to share our expertise with you in this area. And we've worked a lot with organizations that share this concern as well. And we've helped engineering teams navigate highly restrictive AI policies. And we can even provide teams that have legal policies banning the use of LLMs outright with a compliant pathway to adoption. But here's the important figure for you to ground yourself on. And in this study by Carnegie Mellon University last year, they looked at all of the most popular LLM models and studied the frequency of their generation of code snippets that had a striking similarity score on a benchmark they created called the LICO eval to license protected code. And what they found was that the frequency of that occurring between, or that of these being generated was between 0.88 and 2.01%. So what this data can tell you is that if you're using a third-party LLM from a reputable provider, the risk of IP liability is quite low. However, you don't need to just rely and bet the farm on that data, because Tabnine offers the most comprehensive approach to copyright and IP compliance in the entire category, right? And we do this in three ways. The first is provenance and attribution, right? Which I can see here, this slide is not showing the GIF because it's loaded into the streaming platform. So you have to wait for that one, and I'll show you that here live, which I'd argue is even better. But provenance and attribution is the first one. And it's a capability in Tabnine where we check AI generated code from any LLM that you're using against publicly visible code and then we flag matches and reference the source code and the license for that code. So that makes it really easy to decide if the code meets your specific policies. And soon, very, very soon here, we're going to be able to take that decision out of the developer's hands, the individual developers, and set that through the admin console as organizational governance, right? So we have this new capability called censorship that's going to be coming out. So you can, out of the box, block, let's say, all GPL licenses or licensed code. So Tabnine will not suggest any code that has, let's say, a GPL license in it, right? So you can censor at a high level. Additionally, if that's not good enough for you, we also offer a really, completely IP safe LLM for our most sensitive customers. And that's called Tabnine Protected. And it's, purpose built for software, of course, but the important thing is that it's trained exclusively on permissive license code. And that meets the requirements of very, very strict teams with the highest standards for IP compliance. But we find with all of our other safeguards in the realm of privacy and security that folks don't even need to go that far in. You can still use Claude and achieve all of the compliance and governance and protection and security benchmarks that you're trying to hit while still using a very performant LLM. Now, what's also unique about Tabnine is that we're the only LLM provider on the market to expose the full set of underlying training data. And you can access that through the Tabnine Trust Center. And we're happy to share that with you for you to review that. Now, of course, capping it all off, we also offer contractual protection through indemnification for our enterprise customers. So really, there is no need to worry. So the second thing you need to do here is personalize the output of AI generation to fit your organization's context. Now, lost my mouse here. So this is really critical, right? Because generic systems can generate code for enterprise or can, I guess, generic systems generate code for enterprise grade challenges. And the study from George Mason University took a look at that. And what they found is that generic AI code assistants, such as Copilot or Codium, really, really, really struggled with hard challenges. So they found usability issues in aligning Copilot's code with real-world tasks. And they noted inefficiencies with it in complex environments, right? Like the ones that you would run into and operate in every day, right? And specifically, Codium struggled significantly with hard problems across all categories, with an overall success rate as low as 13% for hard problems. And I am happy to share any of that data with anyone who wants it. So this is how we solve that for you today. This is our advanced context engine. Now, I know this is a architecture slide, right? So all of these capabilities are here. Now, we have generation agents for every step of the SDLC, right? And we've released code validation agents for code review that check for security, readability, maintenance, performance, I think correctness, all of which I'll show you here shortly. And our code review agent also checks for, I think I listed them all. Anywho, and then of course we have our bug fixing agent as well, right? So all of this lets you combine Tabnine Enterprise Context Engine with proprietary customized models that we've developed for you or the ones that you develop yourself, as well as any third-party models that you like. And we have a growing list of integrations with other model providers and other parts of your enterprise tech stack. And of course, on the pull request side of the house, we currently integrate with GitHub PRs and additional PRs coming soon. But naturally, you can connect Tabnine to any source code management system. So before I share a little bit more about our context engine, let's just make sure we're all grounded on how LLMs work today. And because I can't talk to you or see you on air right now, you're going to have to forgive me if this is stuff that you already know, right? So the modern day LLM is transformer based, right? They reason about sequences, and really what they know is the relationship that exists between entities within the sequence, right? And that enables them to predict what comes next in the sequence. So here you have a silly example of how a neural network arrives on an output, right? Humpty Dumpty sat on a what? Okay, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, 98% probability. And so coding systems use LLMs or have LLMs that have been trained on a huge corpus of open source data. And we're talking about billions and billions of repos here, comprising of hundreds and hundreds of different languages. And in a lot of cases, coding assistants can solve problems purely through the data set on which the LLM has been trained. You'll find that this is really common when you're going from 0 to 1, right? Starting from scratch, building something new. But we found that's not usually the case for enterprise engineering teams. These folks are usually going from 1,001 to 1,002, right? So you're not building from scratch. You need something that's not just trained on the basic data, your standard data set. You need something that's personalized and that's contextually aware, right? So let's move down into personalization in tab 9. So what is RAG? Why do we use retrieval augmented generation? Well, RAG basically gives you the output intended effect of fine tuning without having to perform fine tuning. And it solves one of the criticisms of LLMs, that even fine tuned LLMs, when it comes to coding, and that the output of these LLMs produces is out of date, right? When you fine tune something, the second your code base changes, it's now out of date. And this works sort of with this stick figure diagram. When you make a query into tab 9, this guy here is asking, how do I build a REST client to call the Acme services layer? Instead of that going straight to the LLM and spinning out a generic response, what happens first is that the query gets sent into our retrieval system, and it goes into the ranked documents we've created through indexing. And then the query is rewritten and enhanced prior to even being sent out to the LLM before generating a response. And there's two ways that we do RAG here. There's semantic memory, and that's basically uses a semantic understanding of the code or code base to retrieve semantically relevant entities into the inference context. And this is language specific. So we use language servers here to analyze the project and create an in-memory representation of the semantic information. Now, the second way we do that is with vector memory. So in this case, we create documents that are retrieved from code sources and non-code sources. And then text is chunked into model digestible pieces. And then we create numerical embeddings for each chunk and load those into the vector store. That vector space is updated periodically, and then to reflect those changes in your code. So if you're trying to do this through fine tuning, you would have to run your fine tuning process at an hourly or by the minute basis, which if you've ever tried to do model fine tuning before, you know it's next to impossible to do it that quickly. It's very, very it's laborious, and it is resource exhaustive. So what this lets you do is expose best practices and make code discoverable, RAG, and encourage code reuse, as well as control the output of the LLM so that it fits your organizational context. So we'll show you another slide here on how RAG exactly works, right? So you're using a question or a prompt in the IDE plugin, standalone questions hitting similarity and semantic search, and then it's going into a vector DB. It's then getting our retrieval augmented documents and pushing all of that information that's contextually enhanced into the LLM, and boom, you've got a relevant code suggestion. Excuse me. So let's just take a quick look here excuse me, at the first level of context awareness, and that's local context awareness, right? So this is all the data points that we look at. There's about 15 of them. So current files, open files, current selection, imported libraries, compiler syntax errors, terminal, other project files, project metadata, Git history, conversation history, connected repositories, and a few more other sources of information all get factored in within our context engine to help deliver really, really accurate responses to the queries that you're asking. Now, this is how we increase the quality of AI code recommendations through personalization. There's 4 levels, right? Context, local context awareness, connection to your code and knowledge bases, coaching based on your standards, and then ultimately the customization of underlying models as needed. But as we've said, or I've said previously here, my opinion, the juice is not worth the squeeze when it comes to fine tuning. It's just not. When you have a really, really good RAG and context engine, you can stay up to date. It's more contextually accurate and requires less resources and labor to keep up and running. It does it automatically, right? So the only real reason we've found necessary to do fine tuning, just to touch on this, is really hard to read or poorly documented code languages, right? So think System Verilog, Spark, Ada, COBOL is a great example, right? Ones that are really hard to work with. Not a lot of people know how to work with them, and they're poorly documented. That's a use case where you would maybe fine tune a model that's trained exclusively on that language of code. So diving a little bit deeper, here is more insight into our personalization, right? There is our local context, and here is our code-based context, which is giving you AI tailored to you and your team without sacrificing privacy, right? And the bullets on this slide are specifically relevant to using Tabnine in our SaaS deployment. Naturally, if you're doing a VPC or on-prem or air-gap deployment, it's fully self-contained. Now, here, let me see here. We're gonna jump through a couple of slides here, or talk about coaching. So when you get into coaching, you get explicit guidance to control how Tabnine behaves, right? And that operates in the pull request as well as the IDE, right? So Tabnine generates code that complies with all of your standards. Tabnine enables customers to codify. Thank you, Tired, for the constant ask for fine tuning. That is a good call out, James. Like I said, yeah, the juice might not always be worth the squeeze. Good context engine and RAG always seems to do the trick in our opinion. Now, when you get into coaching, this Tabnine enables customers to codify their institutional knowledge, right? So for example, accepted standards for software development, unique best practices for your specific team, or corporate policies, all into rules that can be applied in code review or at the pull request in the IDE. You provide the parameters you'd like to see in your code comply with via plain language, right? No complex setup required, and Tabnine converts all of this into a set of comprehensive rules. So Tabnine checks the code in the PR and the IDE against your set of rules, flags any deviations, and offers guidance and the suggested edits to fix those issues. And this enables you to generate code that is of higher quality and more secure and follows your best practices long before you get to your code review, which I think is really, really important. And then, of course, yeah, we have fine tuning as the last sort of layer. But like I said, really good for just those poorly documented code languages, right? Like Spark, Verilog, Ada, COBOL, and so forth. So let's hone in a little bit more on coaching, right? And why that's important. Because again, any AI code assistant, even a generic one, can generate code, right? But Tab9 can validate that code. So that's really important, right? Because code generated by generic assistants is questionable in its security. So this study looked at GitHub projects and Copilot generated code. I also, examined GPT and Codium, and they found that on average, 30% of code snippets being generated by these tools have security weaknesses, right? And these weaknesses were diverse. Excuse me. They related to 43 different CWEs, and 8 of the CWEs were found currently belonging in the MITRE's CW top 25 list. So that is a problem because you can't scale code generation if you're scaling security weaknesses and technical errors and bugs, right? So again, this GIF is not working here, but we solved that for you via our code review agent, right? You can, like I said, you can codify your institutional knowledge, your best practices. You can take your best engineers and code reviewers and engineering managers' knowledge. You can augment that, and you can make it on demand for every developer within your entire organization who's using Tab9, right? Now, you also need to think about future-proofing your AI software development platform. And we give you complete control over your AI infrastructure to do that. And this is really important because many of our customers are developing their own LLMs. And as we've seen with the rise of Llama and Quen and DeepSeek, the LLM's arms race is far, far from over. And you're going to want flexibility. So with Tab9, you get that, right? You have complete model flexibility to choose the best fit for you, right? Of course, with our SaaS offering, we offer a ton of different models that you can use. If you're deploying VPC, you can connect into your own private endpoints for those models as well. For example, you can do Cloud Sonic through AWS Bedrock. And then, of course, if you're deployed on-prem, you've got your own models and your own infrastructure. You can connect those into Tab9 as well. Now, as of late, we've announced native support for Llama 3.370B and Quen 2.532B with our enterprise self-hosted offering. Plus, we've introduced this sort of groundbreaking capability that enables you to integrate any LLM of your choice in a self-hosted environment. So whether you need to deploy a highly optimized open source model, leverage models that you've already fine-tuned internally, or integrate specialized third-party models, Tab9 now allows your organization to seamlessly, incorporate these models into our AI software development platform. And this expanded support gives enterprise teams unprecedented flexibility to select the optimal models for their specific development needs while maintaining complete control over their deployment architecture, their data sovereignty, and their security protocols, which I think is a big win, right? And that lets you create a fully self-contained AI system, right? So you have total privacy, flexibility, and control is in play here. You can deploy however you would like. Of course, you can deploy us via SaaS. You can deploy us VPC. You can deploy us on-prem. You can also deploy Tab9 fully air-gapped. And what's super cool about Tab9 is within your single company, you can have multiple deployment types of Tab9. So that really gives you total control over your data privacy and performance. So couple more slides here and then we're going to get on to the demo, which that's what the majority of you folks are probably here for. So why Tab9, right? You now have a good understanding of what's happening in the category. the way Tabnine's capabilities are putting you in the best position possible to leverage these innovations for today and for years to come, right? So let's cap this all together. Any agent can write code. Ours earn your developers' trust, right? It's a development platform that's tailored to you, and one that you can actually trust. And when I say tailored to you, I mean tailored to the specific needs of highly mature enterprise engineering teams. You've seen how it's personalized. You've seen how we keep your data private. You've seen how we protect you from all the drawbacks and limitations created by generic assistants. And it's not just us tooting our own horn, right? We've been recognized by leading analyst firms. Most recently, Gartner recognized us in their critical capabilities report for AI code assistants. And looking at the all 12 major providers in the space, we ranked first for 3 use cases, and we ranked a very, very, very close second for the other 2 of the 5. And we're also ranked by Everest Group as well as OMDIA. So without further ado, let's get on to the demo. Let's take a look at what you can do with Tabnine. So give me a second here while I set this up. Oh, awesome. Okie dokie. So let's start a new conversation, and we're going to get a new terminal here. Cool. So let's do a quick little overview. We're going to start off by going over the Tabnine UI and everything that you're going to interact with along the way. Now, just to make my life easier here, I'm going to switch this window down here so I can keep a pulse on any questions that come through. All right. Okie dokie. So let us start here. I'm in VS Code, but of course we support every major IDE, right? The entire JetBrains family, VS Studio, Eclipse, NeoVim, you name it. And soon to be something also big. We're going to be, supporting Perforce here as well, which is very exciting. Now, as far as the UI goes, when you open up your IDE, in this case VS Code, I click this icon here. It's the Tabnine icon. When you have it installed, you'll see it here appear on the right, or the left, excuse me. But you can also drag and drop it right or left wherever you see fit. Now, within the you click this icon, it's going to pop up Tabnine AI Chat. Now, starting at the top, you have your switchable models dropdown. Now, this is where you can choose as an individual developer which model you would like to use for the task at hand. In this case, I'm going to be sticking with Claude 3.5 Sonnet today. But again, you can choose them on a query by query basis. Now, below that, if you are a long-term user of Tabnine, we used to have our agents here in the box. We've since moved our pre-built agents to this dropdown. So coming standard with Tabnine out of the box, you have these top 5: explain, test, document, fix, and code explore, right? And we'll get into what each of those do here shortly. But also through this dropdown here, initialized by this / command, you can access your other custom commands. And custom commands are just things you found yourself doing. Well, they're mini agentic flows, right? And they're ones that I've built based on things I've found myself prompt engineering or asking Tabnine over and over and over again. Now, within this sort of realm, this is where you can type in your natural language queries, right? Use everyday conversational language, type in queries and prompts, and you'll get back answers and results, right? And you can use @mentions to get more specific. So think about naming specific files or methods or classes that helps you sort of provide more context with your queries. You can also use non-code sources of context, right? Like attaching images. So think, turn an ER diagram into Postgres schema. You can go bug hunting. Let's say someone from your marketing team circles something on your website and says, hey, this is broken. You can use that as context within Tab9 to help find and fix that bug. This is also where you can access our Jira agent, right? So you can validate or implement and validate Jira tickets, right? Using non-code sources as context to help generate code that's contextually relevant and follows your organization's best practices and guidelines. Now, let me see here. Zach, will a recording of this be made available? Would like to send it to the higher ups. Yep, this will be available, and there's every one that we've ever done also available as well on our YouTube channel, and that's at Tab9 AI. But yes, of course, this will be this is being streamed there and will be available directly after this this session. Thank you for asking. So let's see here. Where was I? We're going to go with scope. So context scoping, another sort of feature within this AI chat. We talked about the importance of being able to control every interaction, right? This is one of the ways that you can do that. You can determine your scope on a conversation by conversation basis, right? So I can look at my current file, workspace, code base. I can also look at my terminal as context. And I can also go into remote code bases and get more granular. So I can specify, a particular repository. I can mention a specific folder. I can even go into a specific file, right, without ever having to leave my IDE. Now, moving, we're going to go up top here. You'll have our testing agent. Oops, I already have a plan in there, but we're going to clear that. Now, this is where you can generate comprehensive test plans with Tab9, right? And there's a couple ways to initialize it or to generate tests. This personally is my favorite, and I think the best out of the bunch, but we'll walk through what those look like here shortly. Now, as we are working within the IDE, right, or no, we're already in with the IDE, within our project, let's take a look at, for example, code completions. As you're typing within Tab9, you'll notice that anything gray here is Tab9's code completions engine, right? So what's happening is Tab9 is going to recognize your intent and automatically suggest a relevant code recommendation, right? So if it's, in this case, printing more useful info tips, rule number 17, God bless for the folks that have to follow them all, it's going to recognize that and print another one. If it's documentation, same goes there. Same for testing, you name it, right? It's going to recognize your intent and help provide relevant code recommendations. Now, above that, you're going to notice a little block here. That's our Tab9 code lens. So above each block of code, you're going to see these 4 buttons and sometimes a 5th, right? And that's going to be edit, test, explain, document, and sometimes fix. Now, fix will only appear if there is something wrong. If there is nothing wrong, it will not appear, right? Now, this is just a way more within the developer flow to access the same agents that we saw within our Tab9 chat in our dropdown here, right? So that edit, test, explain, document, and fix. Now, even more so, when you are, let's say you're typing and you finished up some code, you can do Command I on a Mac, and that'll open up our switchable, or not switchable models, our command palette, right? It's a little drop down here that comes from the top. Now, at the top, you can use plain language, right, to enter instructions, perform queries similar to how you do down here. You can also use @mentions to reference specific code snippets. You can access our quick commands, so your fix, document, explain, and explore, as well as determine the selected model for this query. as well as determine the scope. So you'll find a lot of similarities in functionality, right? From AI chat to the code lens to the dropdown, but it's all about that freedom and flexibility to go where you see fit. Does tab 9 have anything like a cursor tab? Whew. We do and we don't. I can share that we're working on something very, very exciting. I'm not going to share too much information on what that is, but I can tell you that it's not going to blindly automate things, multiple files, and do multiple edits all at once. We firmly believe in human in the loop here, right? So we do have something exciting that's coming on the roadmap that will be here very, very shortly that I can't share much about right now, but I think, Christopher, you'll be very, very, very interested in it when it does arrive. But not your own IDE. We are not doing any of that. We are not making folks adopt something new. This is going to be a seamless integration into our existing platform, and just be some more functionality that I think our user base is going to be really, really excited about. But anywho, let's continue on with the show. So let's start by doing our code explore agent, right? So we're going to jump over here into this project, and let's use that code explore agent, which is accessible from this / command here. We're going to do code explorer. We're going to exit out of these guys. Okay. So for this first stage, right, planning, it's really important as a developer to gain an understanding of the project, what the application does, etc. Especially if you're new, if you haven't seen this project before, right? Maybe it's being worked on by a team across the globe. This is a really, really useful tool to be to get up to speed and onboarded exponentially faster than ever before, right? The Code Explorer agent is building quick action in Tabnine chat that users can invoke when starting a new conversation, right? Or is this empty state, right? Or by using / code explore. Now, Tabnine chat will then return a high-level summary of the project's key elements, runnable scripts, key dependencies, overall structure. And in addition to this, this response, it's going to provide us with a handful of follow-up questions, right? Allowing us to dive further into relevant information pertaining to my current task, right? So we can onboard and get up to speed much, much faster than historically before, right? Rather than reading README documents or reading documentation. And sweet, okay. Product fraud detection dashboard, okay. Sweet. Now, let's say we understand loosely what this is, but we want to learn more about it, about a specific area of the code. That's where explain code comes in handy, right? So let's go to our dashboard. We're going to highlight this here, and we'll say explain code. Now, explain code is great for files and blocks, right? So being able to have a more granular understanding of what each block of code is doing, right? Also going to provide those references. Great. It's looking at the dashboard TSX, obviously. And it will still provide those follow-up questions. So we have a general idea here. This is a fraud detection dashboard. I believe it is already running. Oof. Harsh color palette, but this is her in all her glory. So good stuff. We have an idea of what it is. We know how it works. Let's keep moving forward. So we're going to go through this next phase, which is create, right? We know it's in each file. We know how it ties together. Let's work on adding a ticket in, right? I just got out of a sprint, have a handful of tickets assigned to me in Jira. I want to turn those non-code sources of context into code. right? How am I going to do that? Well, for starters, you want to connect Jira. And to do that, very easy. In tab 9, it's a little integration here. You click this button. I'm connected right now. So I won't do, disconnect and reconnect, but it is, if you've ever integrated a SaaS app, it's a couple clicks in 30 seconds, right? So what we'll do now is let's go over to our Jira instance and take a look here. So this is our little dummy board here, and I'm just gonna get out of this for a second. So it's important to I want to bring attention to a couple of things here. First of all, 60 tickets in the to-do, right? That's a lot. It's a lot of tickets. 16 specifically to me. Now, whenever I am in my tab 9 instance and I click this Jira button, we're only going to see 4. Why is that? Well, with tab 9, it's only going to recognize the tickets that have been assigned to you, specifically your user, and that have been active within the last 30 days, right? Anything outside of that window or that doesn't fall within those parameters, you're not going to see, right? So don't have to worry about sifting through your whole team's tickets, right? Or tickets from a year ago or 6 months ago that you might have not gotten around to completing yet. It's very concise and just pertaining to what's active and relevant in your life currently. So let me see here. I see we have a couple questions here. Notice that Claude Figure 2 was removed. You mentioned it was performance. I see it's now back. It is performing a little bit better. I think what we've seen, in my opinion, in the market, we've seen it's moving so fast, right? Folks are pumping things out at a revolutionary rate. With that, I think comes a lack of testing or checks and balances, right? So a Claude 3.7 was a great example of, in my opinion, one that might have been pushed a little bit too early, not from the tab 9 side, right, but from the Anthropic side on just the amount of performance issues that we experienced, or issues I experienced using the app or the LLM itself. Just felt a little bit rushed, but it is back now in tab 9 that you can access it. So moving forward here, let's work on this Jira ticket. Since we know what's in here, we know how it all works together. Let us implement one of these. So we're going to do brand redesign. And let's say implement this ticket. And it is as simple as that. Certainly, I'll help you implement this. First, let's update the sidebar component. Now, what's interesting here is tab 9 is taking the description of the ticket, the acceptance criteria of the ticket, as well as the name, and combining that with all of the other local context points, right? And other contexts I've set here within the scope. All of that is being combined together to create code that's going to comply with my organization's standards and policies and historically how we've written code, right? And then all we have to do here from our side is click apply, right? Which is an awesome feature, by the way. Apply is not to be confused with its cousin insert. Apply puts that code suggestion exactly where it should be, regardless of your open page, regardless of your cursor location. It is magical, and it saves, in my opinion, a lot of headaches. So I can go in and review, say, okay, does this look good? Yep, works for me. Now we have to update the top bar. Let's click apply there. Awesome, looks good. We'll accept that change. So let's also add a unit test. Perfect. We're going to add one of these. Exactly. Now, one of the things I've specified within my Tabnine instance, it's a custom behavior, and I'll get to that here in a second, is I want Tabnine to provide, I like to follow TDD, right? So provide some form of unit testing along with these suggestions so I can make sure everything is functioning and working properly. And then let's look at the references. Cool. Okay, so it's looking at how I lay, my layout, my global CSS for styling. It's also taking into account how I style via my microservices demo that I built for production here. So I can go click on that reference and whoops, it's loaded it in my opposite window here, but let me pull this back up. So just from my IDE within that suggestion, you can click on that reference and it'll take you to the exact area of code in the repository, in the file that it got that suggestion from, right? Which I think is really useful and really important, right? It's giving you transparency, which builds trust, right, on where your suggestions are coming from. So let us validate this. So let's go back in and we'll say validate this ticket because we want to ensure that this has been properly implemented. And if there is anything that hasn't been properly implemented, I want to know, right? We don't want to just blindly push things. Okay, it should be changed to mint green. Change to coral. Okay, so it doesn't explicitly check for contrast. We can add an additional test. And this is not covered by unit test and require manual testing or end-to-end tests. Great, because I made a specific note here within my ticket that I want to, this is something that needs to be done by a human, right? So it's just gonna, okay, we're gonna further validate it. Let's add a little bit more here. We'll apply. Perfect. Awesome. Now, not only did I just create my new Jira ticket, but I created a test file to go along with it and test it. So I think that's perfect timing to go into our test agent here. Now I'm going to take a pause here for a second, and I see there are some questions. Mateo, it seems the plugin for WebStorm has fewer features. There might be a slight difference in parity, but they all should be pretty much consistent across all of our IDE plugins. We should have feature parity across each one. But let me see here is, oh, geez. Puder? I hope I'm not pronouncing your name incorrectly. If I am, I apologize. This recording will be available later. Every recording that we've done for the last, since fall is up on our YouTube channel. That is Tabnine AI on YouTube. So you'll find this session right after it's done, as well as all previous Tabnine Office Hours sessions available to watch on your own time as well. Bob, good question. I can tell you which models I like to use, but I would also be curious to hear in the audience or to see in the audience which models you folks are using out there, and which ones you've had success with. I personally really like Llama and Claude 3.5. Claude 3.5 is probably my most used one. But yeah, I found a lot of success there. But curious, great question. Curious what other folks are using here in the audience. Now, so you know what? Before we get to testing, there's one more thing I want to show you guys, and that's going to be our provenance and attribution. So I'm creating code, right? I am in this large application I've built that's a a big cars application, right? It's sort of like a cars.com, if you will. I want to do some sort of initialize an open telemetry service, right? Using tracer provider. So we would say, show me how to initialize an open telemetry tracer provider. Use Go as the sample. So what you're going to see here is Tabnine's going to provide this suggestion, right? But it's also, you're going to notice a little ticker here on, boom, here we go. This one here. And this is our providence and attribution feature, right? So what we talked about earlier in this call, and for folks who were not maybe here for that part of it, we have a feature called providence and attribution, right? When enabled, it is looking at every single suggested code from Tabnine AI chat and soon to be in our entire platform. And it's checking against checking that code suggestion to see if there's any similarity with publicly visible code, right? Anything that's been used on let's say GitHub, right? And that's publicly available on GitHub. And if there is any sort of match, it's going to provide some attribution. It's going to tell you what the source code is, where it's coming from, and the license attached to it, right? So MIT, not so worried about. GPL 3.0, that's something I would like to not touch with a 10-foot pole. So we might steer clear of this one, right? And then as we said as well, we're implementing censorship soon, right? So you can, at a high level as an administrator, you can determine which type of these licenses are permitted within your environment. Maybe none of them, right? But that's for you to decide, right? And you can take that decision out of the individual developer's hands, which is pretty darn neat, if you ask me. So let's jump back over. We are going to do some testing. So let us, you know what? Let's use this one here. We'll do both. All right. Sorry for the inconsistency. First, let's start off by generating a test from scratch, right? So we're going to use our test agent. Now, test agent, like I said earlier, generates comprehensive test plans for your code, right? So starting from scratch, we're going to hit generate test plan. It's going to tell us to prompt some code or select the code we want to feed into the prompt. So we are going to do this entire generator.java file. I do not have a test file. If you did, you could click browse and find it from the dropdown, but we don't. So we are going to create one from scratch. Now, what you'll notice here is it's going to generate a template as well as detailed test cases for functions and methods, right? And so cover a wide variety of testing scenarios. As you'll be able to see here from the short plain English description. Now, you can go in and just choose which ones you would like to implement, right? So let's say we want this one first. Clicking on this, this description's going to prompt Tabnine to generate the test. Again, click apply. Apply is going to insert that exactly where it should. We'll hit accept. Let's see here. Should create a password with only lowercase letters when that option is created. Let's do this one since it'll be easy to see. So let's say that you like a portion of the test. These are all suggested tests, right? Keyword suggested, meaning you can refine, you can polish, you can modify. So what we're going to do here is change from option 4 to option 3. Now it's going to regenerate that test, and it's going to do it this time using option 3 as opposed to option 4, which you can see here. And we'll apply that. Boom. We are building out this test file fast and furiously. Now, you can add all of these, some of them. You can create custom ones here and have Tabnine then add them into your test file, right? This is phase one, I like to say. Getting complete or full code coverage, full test coverage, is a lofty goal. It's historically been very, very difficult until this came out, right? What we've seen folks do and what we've done ourselves is you can create these tests from scratch, and then you can reiterate, right? Feed it back into the test agent, and it's going to look at everything as context from this test file and generate a new set of tests that don't match anything that you currently have, right? Allowing you to ultimately gain that full test coverage, right? So if we look at something like our fraud detection dashboard and we go here, we want to generate a test plan for code. Let's go to our dashboard. We're going to select this. I do have a test file, and it is, oh Lord, I think this one. Yep. Continue. Now it's going to regenerate this test plan, and you're going to see it's going to go through the same sort of song and dance, except we already have the template and we already have existing tests. So now it's going to add in new tests that don't apply or aren't relevant to these. Well, relevant, but not the same, allowing me to get to further and further test coverage and code coverage, which I think is awesome. And I'm just going to take a quick pause here to see if there are any questions. Are there limits on tab 9, like fast requests or slow? No, there are not. There are no limits on the fast requests or slow requests. That is not something that we do. And it's worth mentioning here, just for other folks, we are not token-based priced as well, meaning that query, 10 times, query 100 times. You're not going to have to worry about using a more powerful model like Claude 3.7 and it using up more of your token quota. It is a consistent for enterprise, $39 a month per user. That's it. There are minimums, right? Or for seats, I think it's 10 for SaaS and 400 for enterprise. But again, no use of tokens. This isn't a token usage-based platform, right? So you don't have to worry about hitting those rate limits that you do with a lot of the other programs or getting stuck in those loops, for example. Anywho, let's continue moving here. So we've created some new code. We've wrote new tests. Let's talk about documentation, right? And there's a handful of ways that we can do it. We're going to add one more test in here just to make this demo flow a little bit easier here coming up. So let's add this guy. Perfect. All right. So handful of ways to generate documentation. First, you can just use the code lens, right? Up at the top of each block of code, click that button. It's going to document. Boom. Second, switchable models, or not switchable models, the command palette dropdown, right? Go there, document code, and it's going to generate documentation again. Now, there is one way that I really like to do it. A personal favorite of mine, right? Getting a little bit more advanced. I have some, let's say, documentation guidelines, explicit rules on how my team should write their docs, what type of doc to write for what type of or type of code, I guess, right? If it's files or classes or methods, if it's a package documentation or API documentation. Also provide examples, right? So one of the things we have here in tab 9 is custom commands, right? The ability to create commands for things you find yourself prompt engineering all the time. One of them for me is, let's do create docs from template. So reference that sheet and then create docs for the selected code based on the format in this markdown file, right? So what I can do is go into chat. Let's go over to our test. We're going to highlight this code, create docs from template. Sweet. Now it's generating documentation specifically for this block, specifically how my team likes to write it. And we will apply and accept that change. And we can even confirm, right? Okay, it's looking at the Java documentation's markdown file. And it's using that, that information as context to help create this doc generation, which is pretty cool. Okay, so let's move on into, let's do code review, right? So we talked about being able to do it within the ID as well as being able to do it within the pull request, right? So for starters, let me, whoops, so many tabs, back up and head over to our coaching agent or coaching rules engine, if you will. So this is our rules engine that comes preloaded on tab 9 with, geez, hundreds, thousands at this point of predetermined rules that we've gathered, evaluated, and implemented based on leading voices in the software development space, right? A lot of folks that you might be familiar with out there. Now, what happens is this comes preloaded, right? But we also encourage folks to implement their own rule set, right? Because every organization is different. A one-size-fits-all approach to AI tooling is not going to work, right? You need something that's customizable. So we allow folks to import their own rule set, right? And you can do that a handful of ways. First is from a CSV file, right? You upload a simple English description, right? Let's take this rule, for example. When instrumenting applications to support Prometheus for monitoring, the name of an instructor or instrumenter, should be prefixed with the name of the application. Tab 9 will ingest that and create the rest, right? It'll create a good example, bad example. It'll determine severity, add a rule ID, so on and so forth, right? And you can also customize this at any point in time. It's living, it's breathing, right? This is an evergreen part of the product. Now, you can import like that, right? You can also direct tab 9 to we call it a golden repo, right? Somewhere where you find your best code being written, your best practices being implemented. It's properly documented. It's properly being tested, right? And we can extract a rule set out from that repository, right? Now, what we've just did, you can also then, getting ahead of myself, you can also get your engineering managers or your code reviewers to just take their knowledge, right? Their best practices, their guidelines, their standards and policies, and then you can codify that, right? So what we've just did is we've augmented your best engineering managers, your best code reviewers, your most intelligent developers' knowledge, and we've made it accessible and on demand for every developer who's using tab 9 to have, right? It's going to make code reviews much more enjoyable, educational, and faster, right? It's going to reduce that bottleneck because we've oddly enough, not oddly enough, it makes sense. Our customers have found that they're being so productive using Tab9 that code review is becoming a new bottleneck. That's why we created a code review and coaching agent, right? So let's take a look at that within the IDE. So let's jump back over here and let's say Tab9 coaching. Oops. Oh, let me see here. Let me try this guy. Everybody loves a technical difficulty. Made it this far along without running into any of them. Okay, perfect. So Tab9 review repo within the terminal. Apologies for that slight hiccup here. Initializes our code review agent, right? So what's happening now is all of the code that's been changed since my last commit is being ran against all of the rules here within this coaching agent or rules engine. Excuse me. Now it's going to flag and highlight any deviations, provide suggested revisions, so on and so forth, and give me information as I run this report. So I can say tab9 review report dot dash last. Oh, geez. There we go. Awesome. So we can see, is it done, all of it? Okay, so there's a couple of things that are wrong, right? A lot of issues with my Prisma file, which is fantastic. So here's a good one. Avoid making multiple sequential database calls when they can be combined into a single call. Makes sense. If possible, try to combine several database calls into one after another into a single call. Makes it easier, more efficient to manage, right? This is a good one. This isn't something this is actually an awesome example. This isn't something that's wrong per se. A lot of folks might think it's right? But it's about maintainability and also somewhat of security, right? So it's going to provide that suggested revision to something that, again, isn't inherently maybe wrong by your standards or other developer standards, but in my organization it is wrong, right? So it's going to flag that, provide that suggested revised version, and give me the rule ID that it broke, right? And then you can even take it a step further, and we can say, let's add our terminal. Let's remove our code base. We're going to start a new conversation, excuse me. And I'll get into why I'm doing that here in a second. Say, based on the code review within the terminal, help me fix the issues. And it's going to go through and it's going to look at our terminal now as context, and it's going to go in and provide suggestions, right, on how I can fix those things that I just found. And I'm going to do all of this prior to submitting it to my code reviewer within a PR, right? So it's going to really save, hypothetically, everyone a headache of me getting slapped on the wrist and my code reviewer letting out a long sigh or spitting out their coffee because here I am making a mistake that they've probably fixed 1,000 times before, right? So that is the code review agent in the IDE. Let me just show you here within GitHub PR, right? So this is one of our CSMs, or excuse me, SEs. Sorry, Josh, if you're watching. Josh, and he is doing a PR using our code review agent, right? And you can see here, it's going to show, okay, for this, here's a violation. This is a critical one, right? So it's going to emphasize it here. It's going to give you the file specifically within that repo, the suggested change, and then tell you the to do, right? It's also going to allow you to resolve or commit these suggestions as well. At the end, though, here, it's going to provide you with a summary report, right? Just an easy, high-level table that shows you, okay, critical issues, warnings, errors, and suggestions. Just say, okay, all these have passed, no conflicts with this branch. All good to go there, right? So that's our code review agent. And I think that, and just pull this back up here. So a couple of things I just want to call out here. In contrast, a linting tool, right, is relatively fixed. And that's something that I think we get a lot of. Oh, let me just answer these questions here. I have to run to another call, but thank you as always, Chris, for the great presentation. Appreciate it, Bob. Hope you have a nice day as well. And James, for enterprises, are those configurable at the team level? I believe so, yes. You can do by organization on team if we're referring to the code review coaching rules. Yes, you can configure those specifically to different teams within the organization. So a couple pieces here, because we often get asked this a lot. Well, sometimes we get asked this, and that's what's the difference between a linting tool and this code review agent, right? Because linting is something we're all familiar with. We've used it a ton over, maybe the last decade or so, right? So a linting tool is relatively fixed, right? It checks code against predefined rules and patterns, primarily focusing on style and syntax and basic logic issues. So think of it as like a strict grammar checker that follows a really rigid rule book. In contrast, Tabnine's code review agent is more like a very experienced senior engineer in your organization who understands your team's specific context and preferences. And some of the bigger key differentiators, in my opinion, is the context-aware analysis, right? By that I mean code review agent understands your entire code base, right? Understands your team's patterns, your organization's unique standards. It can identify if code, like we saw today, doesn't align with how our team specifically writes software, even if that code is technically correct, right? Linting only checks against universal rules and patterns with no understanding of your team's specific approaches or preferences. Next piece would be customization depth, right? Code review agent can be coached through plain coaching instructions about your team's preferences and standards. It can also can explain architectural principles or business logic rules that you want it to enforce. Linting is primarily offers configuration through technical rules and rejects patterns with very limited ability to understand higher level concepts. And then the next piece would be learning and adaptation, right? So the code review agent is going to get smarter about your code base over time through its connection to your repositories and documentation, right? And it's going to be able to recognize patterns specific to your projects. And the linting rules remain static unless manually updated. You think about 1,000 rules or a couple thousand rules like we have in our rules engine. It's a lot of manual updates. It sounds like a laborious project to be in control of. The next piece would be feedback quality, right? So the code review agent provides the detailed explanations of issues. It suggests improvements. It can even generate code fixes while maintaining consistency with your existing patterns, right? So not only is it going to review your code, but then it's going to suggest a fix, and that suggested revision is going to be aware of your code base. It's aware of all of your rules, It's going to be something that just falls right in line with your team's unique standards and best practices, right? Whereas opposed to a linter usually offers a very brief predefined error message, right? And a basic fix suggestion. It's all on this topic of generic versus personalized, right? So think of it this way. Linting tool is like a spell check, while Tabnine's code review agent is more like having that senior dev who knows your code base inside and out, reviewing your code. So there are, let me see here. No more questions. So we're going to keep rolling here. A couple more things I want to tackle today because I am solo and I don't have to stop right now. So we're going to talk about customization in Tabnine. And selfishly, this is an area of the product that makes me smile. It brings happiness and joy to me. I really, really like it. I think that settings historically aren't home to like super sexy features, but I think that our settings section is, right? So we've talked about the Jira integration. We haven't talked about response length. Very small, but getting into our sort of realm of personalization here for a user by user basis, right? So we understand different scenarios call for different levels of detail, right? And response length customization lets users fine tune how Tabnine communicates based on their specific needs and preferences, right? So today we've been seeing everything in comprehensive, which, excuse me, is my preference. I like to learn. I think every day is a school day. So I always keep that on. But for someone who is a much more, let's say like a senior dev or a principal architect, someone who is, has some tenure, right? They really know the product or their code inside and out. You might use something like concise, and that's going to give, quick, straight to the point answers on what something is, right? Mainly code suggestions with minimal text. Now, underneath that, you're going to have custom behaviors. This is this number one of where I think is really, really cool in this settings section when it comes to personalization. So in my opinion, custom chat behaviors can fundamentally change how developers interact with Tabnine AI chat. Not only do you have this senior dev who knows your software inside and out, right, there as your pair programmer, but now you have this pair programmer, the ability to have them be configurable, right? So simple things like call me by my name, Chris. Heck, you could have it call you Overlord, which I did for months till I changed it. You can have it do dry and solid principles, right? Something that's a little bit more sophisticated. You can follow native platform logging standards. One that I really like that we saw here today was follow test-driven development, right? When it's going to generate new code, generate unit tests to go along with that code. Another awesome use, something that's really powerful we've seen is localization, right? It is not news that in today's the modern enterprise is usually global, right? There's people that are spread out all over across the world, right? They're working remotely. Some folks, a lot of folks, English isn't their first language, right? So don't worry about having to, learn English or learn a different language. You can localize Tabnine to answer and respond in your native language. And that can be with English characters or non-English characters, right? So on one side, let's say German. On the other side, let's say Chinese or Marathi, right? All of those can be, Tabnine can be localized to fit the needs and meet the needs of anyone around the world, which I think is awesome. Now, the last piece I'm going to talk about here is our custom commands. So probably one of my favorite areas of the platform. You can prompt engineer or create sort of workflows for anything that you found yourself prompt engineering historically in tab 9, or plan or want to do in tab 9, right? And trying to think, you can do them sort of very simple, right? So for example, for the selected code, generate a Jira ticket, and not an actual Jira ticket. It's not going to create that for me, but it's going to create a description of what this code does, the acceptance criteria for the ticket, and all other info needed for Jira tickets, right? Another good one would be this refactor wizard I made. Review and analyze the selected code, identify any opportunities to simplify, optimize, or clean up my code, and automate some tedious refactoring tasks. Those are things that I would say are relatively more simple, right? You can get more complex, let's say, with this find and fix Java dependencies. So I can run this command, and it's going to analyze and review my, in this case, POM XML file, and tell me if there's any updates that need to be made and help me update them, right? So to give you an example, let's use it here within this Jira or this fraud detection dashboard. I can say find and fix JS dependencies. Cool. Package.json file. Now, again, this is Claude 3.5, so you might notice that some of the training data might be a little bit old, but that's okay. Based on the suggested review here are the suggested updates. Again, you can apply those changes, and it'll tell you exactly what to do, right? And it's important to note that tab 9 doesn't just offer code suggestions, also offers terminal commands, right? Or terminal suggestions, if you will. So just clicking this button is going to run that within your terminal. Let's just see here. Okay, yes, lint. Gotcha. Cool. So that's custom commands, right? So think of, I encourage you folks as you're sitting here listening to me, ramble on and go on these rants. Think about, what do you find yourself doing on a daily basis, right? Whether it's prompt engineering the same, the same sort of functionality, right? Generating, let's say, a number of tests that are predefined based on around a sample code or a new piece of hardware. Think about it, right? Think of things that you find yourself doing repeatedly on a daily basis, and then try to make custom commands for them. It can save you an immense amount of time. Also, you can share those custom commands out with your entire team. You can do that by going, within your settings, custom commands. You'll see here, find and fix. You'll see a share. Let's find one that doesn't use teach me more. Cool. Hit share. Now you'll see this icon here. What that does is it creates a file within your project called tab9 commands. Now, all of these commands that have been shared within this project are going to get pushed to my SCM tool whenever I do commit. And anyone who's ingesting this project back down, pulling it back down, is going to get these commands preloaded in their tab9 instance, which I think that's pretty cool. It's a good way to sort of enforce that same use of tech, or enforce the same consistency across everyone on your team. You're using the same commands, they're getting the same similar results, right? So I believe that is predominantly it. I'm trying to think here if I have everything else I am missing here. A couple best practices I wanted to actually bring up today on this call in particular, because I see folks running into these, not necessarily on our side of the house, but yeah, we'll just say in the market in general, right? So some battle tested tips that I have personally that I use all the time when I'm working with AI to help me avoid those "what was I thinking" moments. Um, so think of it as sort of like a developer's guide to speaking AI, because sometimes it feels like we need a translator, right? So number one, incredibly important to be very clear with your language, as it helps generate more specific responses, right? If I say within here, let's start a new conversation, write a function to encrypt passwords, right? Something like this, very simple. It's going to use a simple encryption method. Let's see here. First, it's going to do the test. Okay. Base 64. All right. So while good, as you saw at the top, this is a uh, basic encryption, right? Getting more specific, right? Adding more clear language helps generate more specific responses. So if I go write a function to encrypt passwords using decrypt and validate the encryption, it's going to generate a much more sophisticated response. It's going to use a much better out of the box encryption method. Just sort of with the idea is sort of garbage in, garbage out, right? So you want to just be more specific, be as clear as possible. Don't worry about adding too much text here. You can, do one, blah, 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 two, 3. You can make itemized lists, right? Heck, you can even then tell Tabnine to do things in chronological order, right? It's going to help add more context to out of the box how Tabnine is going to work with your prompts, right? So think of it, sort of start to get your wheels turning on how you can add more context, right? Add different custom behaviors, things like that to help give you a better experience. Another pro tip, starting fresh conversations for each new task. So you'll notice here every time I've switched to a different agent or I've switched my, let's say, goal, right? Generating documentation or problem solving or fixing something, I will start a new conversation, right? Don't be that person who tries to explain 5 different bugs in one convo. We all know how well that works in like a stand-up meeting, for example, right? Everyone's all over the place. You do things systematically, right? AI is like your brain. It can only handle so much. So start new conversations when working on a new task or a new problem domain, right? So new chat would be, how can I improve security of my password generator? Another new chat is generated suggestions for my query and implementations using the workspace indexing. Start new chats for every goal, right? Now, remember, when using AI, context is king, queen, the entire royal family, right? So without context, you can't make use of Tabnine's retrieval augmented generation. So you can get a raw LLM response, right? An LLM alone is like a new team member who's brilliant but hasn't learned your code base yet. So the more context that you give it, the less likely it is to suggest something that that'll make your senior manager, spill out their entire coffee in horror, right? So set context here, add code bases into Tabnine. And again, you can add an unlimited amount of code bases. Any Git-based repo, we have some folks who are customers who have 10,000 repositories added in. We have some that have split up different repos for different microservices, right? So feed Tabnine your context. Give it as much as you possibly can, right? And trying to think here. Some other last steps: break your prompts down into steps. Instead of make me a test case, be specific. It's like the difference between telling someone make me dinner versus giving them a recipe, right? It's a good metaphor. Don't just tell Tab9 to make you dinner. Give it a recipe on what you want it to cook for you, right? So like I said, give not itemized, step out your queries, right? And then the last piece, which I haven't been doing great on this session, is file management. You know how your browser slows down when you have 100 tabs open? Same principle here. Keep relevant files open and close the ones you don't need. The AA's context window is similar to your brain after a long debugging session. You can only handle so much at once. So I'd say the golden rule here, if you remember anything from this last little section, is to be clear, be very specific, and do not be afraid to iterate. And with that, I think that we are probably done here for today. I will stay here for a few minutes and see if there are any questions, comments, anything that you folks want to see or that I didn't possibly show. But happy to answer any further questions here. If not, I appreciate everyone's attendance. It's a fun session this week. We'll have Amaya back next week with me. And yeah, we're going to be here again every week. We do this every Wednesday. This week was 10:30. Next week it'll be 7 a.m. All Pacific time. That is where both of us are based out of. But we rotate and offer on a staggered week-to-week basis. And appreciate all the good comments and questions within here. And if there are no other questions or comments, concerns, we can wrap things up. So we do have plans for single developers, and that is our dev tier, which you can find under tabnine.com/pricing. So you will see our dev tier there. It is just dev and enterprise. A dev starts at $9 a month, and enterprise is $39 a month. No seat minimum on developer, obviously. But for enterprise SaaS, it is, 10 seats for a SaaS environment and 100 seats for a enterprise deployment of Tab9. At 39, $39 a seat for enterprise, $100 or 100 seat minimum for on-prem, and $39 for SaaS as well, but with a 10 seat minimum for SaaS installations. The developer tier is just per seat, one dev, $9 a month. Sweet. And if there are no further questions, I am going to wrap this up. It was a pleasure, as always. This is my favorite part of the job, getting to jump on and talk to everyone here. And I appreciate everyone's engagement and sticking around for almost 2 hours. Last question here. Do test plans work with other languages or are they optimized for specific ones? We support over 600 different languages, frameworks, libraries. So, Christopher, nice name, by the way. Encourage you to give Tabnine a shot. I do not think you will have an issue finding support with the language that you're working with. Of course, there is a nuance, like let's say you're using COBOL or Verilog, right? Those are slightly more challenging. But I think that outside of that small case there, you'll find success and yeah, shouldn't have any issues with having support for the languages you're looking to work with. Cool. Well, with that said, hope everyone has a nice week. Happy Wednesday, or maybe it's Thursday for some of you folks tuning in, depending on where you're at. But thanks for stopping by, and we will see you all next week. Cheers.